Over the years, I've encountered a lot of criticism as my approach to Zen or self-discovery, self-inquiry being too intellectual. I think that's a ridiculous statement or a ridiculous thought, because if you just accept things blindly, why bother? I mean, pick anything. If you want to have some intellectual curiosity about it, you might find something worth getting into. Now, I had my own criticisms. I had my own problems with it years ago, and I'll explain that, because it's a very common situation. With myself in particular, when I first discovered Dr. Demartino, or sent to him by Wing-Tse Chan, it was at a college course, and that's not what I was looking for. I was looking to end a problem. I didn't care about Zen. I cared about a solution. So what happened was, I sat through these courses, and now and then I get some pretty good insights. And then Dr. Demartino recommended that I read Essays in Zen Buddhism Series 2, D.T. Suzuki. And I read it, and I didn't like it. And he used to always say, read a book 3 times before you read it. And at the same time, I read his Zen and Human Nature, his dissertation for his PhD, and it was a nightmare for me. It was so difficult to understand. So you can either dumb down to the person, or you can work your way up. And I read it for several years after the first time, didn't get it. Same with Zen Essay Series 2. And probably 8 years in, because I kept going away to other things, studying Taoism and other things, I read it again, and I went, holy, this is unbelievable how clearly he makes this. But I didn't have the capacity to understand it. But a logical discourse on the problem of human nature. Now, over the years, particularly the Zen Essay series, I have recommended it to many people, and I've told them, if you're like me, if you're like most people, you're going to say it's too tough and I don't get it, and you're going to put it down. And I say, if you're really interested, read it 3 times. About 10 years ago, I got an email from this fellow saying that he had met me at one of my lectures when I used to do them at a community college, and would I meet him for lunch? And I said, yeah, sure. Didn't know who he was, but I met him, and he came in with Zen Essay Series 2, and he said, I hated this book, it meant nothing to me, and I just read it again, and everything's there. I can't believe how great this book is. On that note, there have been times when I have recommended these books to other folks, particularly teachers at the academic level, and they've, oh no. One psychologist a couple years ago, and I said, what did you think of the Zen and the Human Situation? He literally did this. And he just said, it's too intellectual. And he patted his heart. Then I've been in discussions with people, and I'll make a statement or an observation about the human situation, and they'll say to me, that's brilliant. Where did you learn that? I'll say, from the book you rejected. I remember a friend of mine being in Japan telling me that he had recommended Demartino's book, and everybody in the Zen Center just totally put the kibosh on it. A week later, they're having discussions, and he's talking about human nature, and somebody says, that's brilliant, where did you get it? And he said, from the book you rejected. So this idea of rejecting an intellectual process, which is an intelligent process, is really faulty. It's really problematic. And when you don't think things through, and I'm going to tell you a few Zen stories now. There's a Zen story about a guru or whatever, a monk, is walking through the woods, and he sees a trap in the ground, and there's a tiger in it. One of those ones they dig a hole and the tiger falls in. And out of compassion for the tiger, he throws himself in. That's what a wonderful person he was. So the tiger can eat him. Oh, well, that sounds wonderful. Sounds ultimately compassionate. It's stupid. I'm sorry. One, so the tiger eats him, then what? The tiger starves because he can't get out of the hole. Two, why doesn't he find a way to get the tiger out if that's what he wants to do? And then also you have things like, well, if he lets a tiger out and it goes and eats other people, where's the compassion there? There's a lot of these stories. One very famous Buddhist teacher who talks about a mosquito, and the mosquito lands on you and you blow it off, and he comes again and you tap it off, and there's compassion for the mosquito. Okay, I get that. I get not wantonly killing things. I find bugs in the house, I let them out. I don't kill them. However, so particularly where I live, West Nile virus, you let that mosquito go and it's got West Nile and it infects your neighbor and they die from it. Where's your compassion? You had more compassion for the freaking mosquito's life than for the person's? So these stories are, they're supposed to convey some religious compassion. I don't get it. And in Jean Valjean in Les Miserables, the guy breaks into the church or whatever it is, synagogue, I think it's a church, and he caught taking candlesticks, gold candlesticks, and the priest comes up and doesn't take them from him and doesn't get him arrested. He hands him the rest. Okay, where's the compassion there? If he's a drug addict, he's just continued with his drug use. Suppose he goes into the next church and is robbing that, and there's a young woman there and he attacks her. Where's the compassion toward her? Where's the compassion toward the people outside of this? Where's the compassion to the thief? Because he's doing destructive behavior. It's ultimately going to collapse on him. So the compassion would be to get him help, not to, validate his actions, not to validate his actions by giving him the candlesticks. But there's many of these stories, these religious stories are supposed to be wonderful. There's a Swami whose name I forget, but somebody had said, suppose someone's being attacked on the corner and the Swami was there, what would he do? He wouldn't see it because he's in samadhi. That's just ridiculous, So where's the compassion? So this idea of not thinking things through is crazy to me, and I think clearly people display the ability not to think things through everywhere in the world. So in the Eightfold Path of Buddhism, there's correct thinking, or right thinking, and that is sometimes interpreted as not thinking. And I was listening to a lecture by Roshi, established Roshi, and he said the correct thinking is not thinking at all. I have a real problem with that. But in my own life, many years ago, I thought that might be a way. And so I hadn't seen my teachers in quite a while, and I went for 2 years practicing not thinking. This blankness, I don't know what you call it. But I thought I was doing something good. And I worked on it. And then I went to see Dr. DiMartino. It's a 3-hour drive. Knocked on his door, he opened up. How you doing? I'm fine. What have you been up to? I've been practicing not thinking. He looked at me and said, not thinking is your thinking. Not thinking is a thought in itself, to not think. Quieting the mind is being there to quiet the mind. What's quieting the mind? I get it. I understand the idea of it. But it's got to go deeper than that. So to approach, any sort of a self-inquiry, you should be intelligent about it. And I would say that basically what happens is when you use your intelligence to come to a point where intelligence or intellectual inquiry can't answer your problems anymore, your questions anymore, then you're getting somewhere. When you realize the limits of what your mind can do, then you're beginning. So there's a whole idea of turning off your brain. And why do that? We evolved to have a brain. Use your brain. Use your intelligence. And inquire deeply.